Canelo Alvarez becomes a freeweight world champion of sorts, wrestling the WBA regular super middleweight world title from Rocky Fielding in 3 one-sided rounds. This was the first time that Canelo had fought above 160 pounds since May 2017, when he defeated over-the-hill and weight-drained Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in 12 one-sided rounds. Chavez Jr., similar dimensions to Rocky Fielding, was able to go the distance even though he literally lost every round. He was able to last the 12 by using his height and reach and size to just stay the hell away from Canelo, not get involved, not exchange, and just battle to survive. That's how Chavez Jr. was able to go the distance. But Rocky Fielding elected not to use his height and reach and to try and move around and survive. He elected to stand and trade toe-to-toe with Canelo Alvarez from the opening bell. And that was obviously not a very good idea. He was dropped in the first, he was dropped in the second, and he was dropped in the third. I believe there was 4 knockdowns in total. Yeah. It says he was down once in rounds 1 and 2 and twice in round 3. 4 knockdowns in total. Most of them were from body shots. Was one of them from a headshot? It may have been, but most of them were from body shots. Some people are going to look at it and say, well, Fielding gambled by going toe-to-toe, and that's what he had to do. He does have power, albeit at a much lower level, so he had to try and gamble with that power and go for it against Canelo. No use trying to move around the ring like Chavez Jr. did and just survive, because you're not going to win that way. If he's going to win, he's going to have to land some kind of home run shot out the blue. Well, that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it would be, if you frustrate your opponent, you can frustrate them into making mistakes. And particularly when you're fighting in a fight of this magnitude against a fighter of this quality, the first few rounds really should be used, especially when you got height and reach on the guy. The first few rounds really should be used, in my opinion, to assess the situation, to figure out the lay of the land. Move around, stay out the way, keep out of trouble, force some frustration and mistakes out of your opponent, and look to capitalize. It probably wouldn't have worked, but if you fight that way, there's a better chance you'll be in there for longer than 3 rounds. You know, I mean, sometimes you can fight a journeyman, and when a journeyman's just in there to survive and he's moving around and he's being defensive, it's difficult to take him out. I mean, we saw that with Daniel Dubois when he fought Kingpin Johnson. Recently, Hrgovic fought Kingpin Johnson, couldn't take him out. Obviously, these guys are nowhere near the level of a Canelo, but they are not so small compared to their opponents as Canelo was next to Rocky Fielding. So, you know, I think Fielding and his team missed a trick there. You know, I think that they gambled, and, you know, either way it was a gamble, but I think they gambled with the wrong strategy. I think the strategy which would have at least seen them last a few more rounds would have been to stay the hell away, use the height and reach, excessive movement, frustrate Canelo, you know, similar to what Chavez Jr. tried to do. So be that as it may, he was, in the eyes of most people, including myself, never going to win this fight. So does it really matter whether he got taken out in 3 or 10 or whatever the case may be, went the distance and lost every round? It don't really matter. He was going to lose anyway. Some people were very vocal before the fight, saying Rocky Fielding had no chance and running him down on social media. And Eddie Hearn has spoken about this. This is something I'm really not in favor of. If you've got an opinion about a fighter, you think he's going to get battered or whatever, cool. Express that in your circle, among your friends, even among your followers on Twitter. But why are you tagging the fighter himself in the tweet? What's wrong with you? Well, I don't get why people do stuff like that. He's got an opportunity to fight one of the pound for pound top fighters. And You're tagging him in tweets saying, oh, you're going to get destroyed. You're rubbish. You shouldn't even be in the ring with Canelo. Well, like, why would you do that? What's wrong with you? I really don't understand that kind of mentality from people. It's like a crabs in a bucket mentality. You know, you can't achieve what you want to achieve in life, so you're going to bring everybody else down. Sad stuff, man. Yeah, he was never going to win, but people, I don't feel the need to go tag him and make sure that he receives my negative energy. Like, come on. People need to grow up, man. Anyway, as far as Canelo's performance, I mean, what is there to say? He had a guy in front of him who wanted to engage, who was a big target, who wasn't as fast as he was, who wasn't as skilled as he was, who wasn't as good a combination puncher, just wasn't in his class, wasn't in his league, and Canelo went to town, just lit him up like a Christmas tree. And it was the left hook to the body, which has always been one of Canelo's best punches, that did most of the damage. Fielding was never really seriously hurt with headshots, but, you know, the body shots definitely got to him. Canelo, moving up in weight, the naturally smaller man, still had plenty of power. You know, Canelo's never going to be a one-punch knockout man for the most part, but he's heavy-handed enough to get your respect, and I think even at super middleweight, he'll be heavy-handed enough to get most fighters' respect. And it's the accuracy of the shots. It's not just how much force is behind it. Canelo's a very accurate puncher, so if he's hitting you in the vital spots accurately, even at 168, you're going to feel it, you know. But against the likes of Ramirez and Benavidez and Callum Smith, so on and so forth, it will be a totally different kind of fight. Particularly those guys who can use their height and reach effectively, not a big tall guy like Rocky Fielding who's going to stand in front of you bizarrely and just fight your fight. You don't want to fight Canelo's fight if you're not as good at fighting that kind of fight. You want to fight, you know, in a way that's going to make him feel uncomfortable. And some of the other super middleweights out there are capable of doing that. They're capable of fighting in a way that will make Canelo uncomfortable, using their height and reach effectively, making Canelo have to leap forward to try and land shots. And in doing that, he's going to make mistakes. You know, Canelo Alvarez, short and stocky, very powerfully built naturally. He's no Mike Tyson. He doesn't have the kind of foot speed, the kind of dynamic head movement, the ability to slip and counter while moving forward at the same time. I mean, he can do it, but not on the level of a Tyson, a Joe Frazier, etc. Canelo's back foot game is actually, I would say, more sophisticated than his front foot game. His back foot game, his counter-punching game, even in the middle of the ring. But moving forward as an out-and-out pressure fighter, he has improved over the years. I'll definitely say that. His pressure fighting skills have improved quite a lot over the years, but they still don't match his back foot skills. So, yeah, he does now have a version of the super middleweight title. It remains to be seen whether he stays at 168 or if he moves back down to middleweight. I'm not sure. I think they're going to maneuver Canelo Alvarez very carefully at this point because he just came off the Golovkin win, and that was like the cherry on top. You know, that was the jewel in his crown. They don't want to spoil that at this point. They've just signed this big deal with DAZN. They want to try to capitalize on Canelo's fame, notoriety, success as much as possible. I'd be surprised if they just dive in and start taking on all these tough challenges, you know, fighters who won't necessarily drive the most DAZN subscribers to the platform. You understand what I'm saying? So I think they're going to be careful about who they match him with. Will they fight Danny Jacobs? Potentially, yes, because Danny Jacobs potentially is another DAZN fighter. But when they're dealing with fighters who are not signed to the platform, I think they're going to be a lot more careful. And if you look at the super middleweight division, most of those guys are not on DAZN, right? Ramirez ain't on the zone. Benavidez ain't on the zone. Who else is there now? Callum Smith, I guess he will be right because he's a Sky fighter. So I guess he'll, with Eddie Hunt, he'll be fighting on the zone. But a lot of the guys at 168, they're not on the zone. So I think they'll be a bit careful about who they match him with at 168. And 160, well, there are so many zone fighters there. So I think basically the point I'm making is I think they'll take more risks with Canelo at 160 than they will at 168. Because you got the zone fighters at 160 and fighters with a higher profile as well. So I think because of that, they'll be more willing to put him in dangerous fights. So let me know what you felt about Canelo's performance against Rocky Fielding. Did this indicate that he'll be a force at super middleweight to you? Or was he just bowling over a very overmatched, hand-picked opponent in there? And does this have no bearing at all on how he might do against the likes of Callum Smith, Benavidez, Ramirez, etc.? Let me know what you think in the comment section below, people. It's Hatman, I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.